10. Heracles was the son of a god and a mortal. Let's start with the very beginning, because the story of Heracles is one of divine lineage mixed with human struggle. Heracles was born to Zeus, the king of the gods, and Alcmene, a mortal woman. Now, in Greek mythology, being the offspring of a god often meant privilege, but in Heracles' case it came with a storm of complications. Zeus had a habit of sneaking around, and Hera, his wife, was notoriously jealous. Imagine being a child and having the queen of the gods basically hold a grudge against you from birth. That's exactly what happened to Heracles. Hera's wrath shaped much of Heracles' early life. She sent 2 snakes to kill him in his crib when he was just an infant. Most babies would have, cried and perhaps bitten a finger or two. But Heracles? He strangled the snakes with his bare hands. Even as a baby, he was exhibiting the raw strength and heroic spirit that would define him for the rest of his life. It is almost like imagining a modern-day scenario. A newborn in a crib somehow lifting weights or performing an Olympic feat, and you start to understand why Heracles quickly became the embodiment of physical might in Greek mythology. But being a demigod wasn't all flexing muscles. Heracles faced human challenges too. He had to navigate the complex social and political world of mortals, all while managing the wrath of a goddess who actively tried to make his life miserable. This duality, being both divine and mortal, is a key element that makes Heracles' story so compelling. It's like having the ultimate potential handed to you, but also carrying a lifelong burden, which is something many of us can relate to in a metaphorical sense. Think of it as having incredible talent but constantly dealing with obstacles that test your patience and character. Year 9. Heracles' first 12 labors were a form of redemption. Moving forward, one of the most famous aspects of Heracles' story is undoubtedly the 12 labors. But did you know these epic feats weren't just challenges for glory? They were a form of redemption. Heracles, in a moment of tragedy, was driven to commit a horrifying act under the influence of Hera's madness. He killed his own wife and children. This is not something any modern superhero movie would dare to tackle with such gravity. But in Greek mythology, heroes were deeply human, complete with flaws and consequences. To atone for this tragic event, the Oracle of Delphi instructed Heracles to serve King Eurystheus for 12 years, completing 12 seemingly impossible tasks. These labors weren't just tests of physical strength, they were tests of character, intelligence, and endurance. Each labor was more than a simple monster fight or fetch a magical object. They were symbolic challenges that reflected Heracles' struggle for personal redemption, a theme that resonates across cultures even today. In a modern American context, think of it like being given a second chance to prove yourself after a personal failure, but on a mythic scale. Imagine having to clean up the mess you caused and facing every obstacle imaginable while doing it. For instance, the first labor was to slay the Nemean Lion, a beast with impenetrable skin. You can't just stab it or shoot it, nothing works. Heracles had to use his wits, realizing he needed to wrestle it and eventually strangle it with his bare hands. It's the classic underdog story, but here, the underdog is already superhuman, and the stakes are life and death, not just for him, but for his path to redemption. The second labor was almost as extraordinary. He had to defeat the Ceryneian Hydra, a serpent-like monster with multiple heads that would regrow if severed. Heracles' solution: he cut off the heads while his nephew, Iolaus, cauterized the stumps to prevent regrowth. This labor highlighted not only Heracles' strength but also his resourcefulness and ability to work with others. In some ways, it mirrors the American ideal of problem-solving under pressure, using both brains and brawn to overcome obstacles that initially seem insurmountable. These first 2 labors, though just the beginning of a dozen, set the tone for what Heracles' story truly represents: the intertwining of physical might, moral responsibility, and the pursuit of personal redemption. They show that even heroes with divine lineage are not immune to mistakes, and that true heroism often requires acknowledging one's flaws and facing them head-on. By exploring these early episodes in Heracles' life, we gain insight into a hero who is far more complex than a simple strongman archetype. He is a figure who embodies the tension between divine privilege and human suffering, between unstoppable physical power and the necessity of moral courage. These layers are precisely why Heracles' myth has endured for centuries and continues to inspire storytelling today. From comic books to blockbuster films, the template of a flawed yet redemptive hero owes a lot to the enduring legend of Heracles. At this point, we've just scratched the surface. We've seen the raw power of a newborn hero and the early trials that defined his journey toward redemption. These initial stories reveal Heracles as a deeply human figure, despite his extraordinary abilities, showing that even those destined for greatness must wrestle with challenges, moral dilemmas, and the shadows of divine interference. As we move forward into the next part of his life, the adventures become even more fantastical, introducing creatures, challenges, and tales that blur the line between legend and myth, drawing us further into the world of one of history's most captivating heroes. 8. Heracles had an unusual friendship with Theseus. Many people know Heracles as a lone warrior, a demigod taking on impossible tasks. But did you know he had significant friendships that shaped his story? One of the most fascinating relationships was with Theseus, the legendary hero of Athens, famous for defeating the Minotaur. You might think that two such formidable heroes would either compete endlessly or clash dramatically. Surprisingly, Heracles and Theseus developed mutual respect and camaraderie. Their friendship wasn't just a passing tale. In one instance, when Theseus faced his own near-fatal challenge, being trapped on the island of the Amazons or caught in political conspiracies, depending on the version, Heracles intervened to help him. Think of it like a modern superhero crossover. Two iconic figures combining forces to overcome dangers that would be insurmountable individually. This bond humanizes Heracles, showing that even a hero of unparalleled strength values loyalty, companionship, and teamwork. It's also a reminder that while individual feats are legendary, alliances often define the true impact of a hero. Interestingly, their friendship was not without tension. Theseus, proud and stubborn like any hero worth his salt, sometimes challenged Heracles' methods or questioned his decisions. This dynamic adds a layer of realism to the myth. Imagine two modern-day elite athletes or military strategists having to collaborate under extreme pressure. They might argue, clash egos, and debate tactics, yet in the end, their shared goal unites them. For Heracles, the presence of these relationships reinforces that he wasn't just muscle and fury. He was a figure navigating complex social landscapes, balancing pride, loyalty, and the burdens of heroic expectation. Circa 7. Heracles' strength was legendary, but his brain was just as sharp. It's easy to reduce Heracles to a symbol of brute strength, imagining him wrestling lions or lifting impossibly heavy objects. But what makes his story enduring is the combination of brawn and brains. Take the example of the Erymanthian boar, another one of his famous labors. This massive, rampaging creature terrorized villages, and simple strength alone wasn't enough to stop it. Heracles had to devise a clever trap, driving the boar into deep snow to immobilize it, a solution that combined strategic thinking with his physical prowess. Or consider his encounter with the Stymphalian birds, a flock of man-eating birds with metallic feathers that could pierce armor. Heracles didn't simply try to fight them head-on. He used a pair of bronze rattles given to him by Athena to scare the birds into flight, then shot them down with his bow. This wasn't mere luck, it was ingenuity, creativity, and a tactical mind at work. In modern terms, it's like an elite special forces operative who doesn't just rely on raw strength, but uses technology, strategy, and psychological insight to neutralize a threat. Heracles' intelligence often went hand in hand with his moral compass, or at least his attempt to navigate moral complexity. The labors themselves demanded not just violence but ethical decision-making. For example, capturing creatures without unnecessary slaughter, resolving conflicts without causing widespread destruction, and using problem-solving to overcome supernatural obstacles. His mind was a weapon as sharp as his fists, demonstrating that true heroism is rarely one-dimensional. Moreover, his cleverness extended beyond the labors. Heracles frequently found solutions in situations where brute force alone would fail. From navigating political intrigues to negotiating with kings, kings' daughters, and even gods, he had to be persuasive, cunning, and adaptable. The mythic tales often show him thinking on his feet, improvising in moments of crisis, and exploiting weaknesses in ways that modern audiences might recognize as strategic genius. These episodes challenge the common misconception that heroes are only physically dominant. In Heracles' case, his combination of mental acuity and physical might allowed him to confront monsters, navigate divine politics, and solve problems that were both mundane and supernatural. It's this duality that makes his story resonate across time. He's not just the guy who can lift anything, but also the guy who can outthink threats, a combination that modern narratives, from comic books to blockbuster films, continue to celebrate. By now, we're seeing Heracles as a multi-dimensional figure. The raw power displayed in his first labors was impressive, yes, but the next phase of his journey emphasizes relationships, strategy, and intellect. His alliance with Theseus illustrates his capacity for loyalty and teamwork, while his clever solutions to otherwise impossible problems show that strength alone isn't enough to be a hero. These layers are what give Heracles his enduring appeal, setting the stage for even more daring exploits, legendary confrontations, and moments of brilliance that will define the next steps in his epic saga. From friendships that could save lives to ingenious tactics against deadly beasts, Heracles' story teaches us that heroism is as much about cleverness and social navigation as it is about physical dominance. And as we move further into his adventures, you'll see that these qualities not only helped him survive, but also allowed him to thrive in a world filled with monsters, gods, and seemingly impossible tasks. Heracles' adventures extended beyond Greece. While many people associate Heracles strictly with Greek myth, his adventures actually spanned a vast geographical landscape, reflecting the interconnected world of the ancient Mediterranean. Legends tell us that Heracles journeyed far beyond the familiar hills of Argos or Thebes. He traveled to lands that correspond to modern-day Turkey, North Africa, and even the edge of the known world at the time. Each of these journeys introduced new monsters, strange tribes, and formidable kings. For instance, one tale recounts Heracles' expedition to the far western reaches to obtain the cattle of the giant Geryon, a task filled with dangers that included crossing treacherous seas and confronting monstrous guardians. This isn't just a story about physical endurance. It's a narrative about exploration, risk-taking, and venturing into the unknown. Think of it as an ancient equivalent of the American explorers charting uncharted territories or astronauts braving the void of space. The hero must confront environments and challenges utterly alien to his home. Moreover, these far-flung adventures served a dual purpose. They expanded Heracles' legend beyond his local city-states, turning him into a pan-Hellenic hero whose fame reached distant lands. They also allowed the storytellers of the era to incorporate regional myths, monsters, and cultural elements, blending local traditions with the overarching Greek mythos. In a sense, Heracles became a bridge, a unifying figure who connected diverse communities through shared tales of courage and ingenuity. His travels weren't merely for show or conquest. Each journey tested his adaptability. In unfamiliar terrain, his strength alone could not suffice. He had to read the land, understand local customs, and navigate unforeseen dangers. Whether confronting a sea monster, outwitting hostile tribes, or crossing deserts and mountains, Heracles' global exploits demonstrate that heroism is about flexibility and resourcefulness just as much as physical power. Yeager 5. Heracles fought gods and titans. As if battling monstrous beasts and enduring arduous labors weren't enough, Heracles' stories include confrontations with gods and titans themselves. One of the most famous accounts involves the Gigantomachy, a mythic war between the Olympian gods and the giants. Heracles, though a demigod, played a crucial role in tipping the balance in favor of the Olympians. These encounters reveal something remarkable. Heracles wasn't merely a pawn in divine schemes, he was a participant, an influencer in events of cosmic significance. This makes him stand out among mythical heroes because, while most figures operate within the limits set by gods, Heracles frequently interacts on their level. Imagine a mortal today negotiating with world leaders, influencing international conflicts, or even mediating between rival superpowers. On a mythological scale, this is what Heracles' interactions with gods represented. Another legendary confrontation involves Heracles' theft of the girdle of Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons. While this might seem like a simple labor or quest, it brought him into direct conflict with divine forces and powerful female warriors, challenging him physically, morally, and politically. His actions here weren't just about personal gain. They carried implications for alliances, honor, and the balance of power, highlighting that Heracles' heroism often entailed complex decision-making beyond sheer combat prowess. Heracles' battles against gods and titans also underscore the theme of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. These encounters weren't just about survival. They were tests of resolve, moral fiber, and the willingness to stand firm against entities far beyond ordinary human comprehension. The stakes were immense, and failure could mean catastrophe on both personal and cosmic scales. Yet, Heracles' successes in these scenarios cemented his legacy as a hero whose influence extended beyond the mortal realm, bridging the worlds of humans and deities in ways that few others could achieve. It's fascinating to consider the modern parallels. In contemporary storytelling, heroes often confront morally ambiguous challenges or powerful antagonists who operate on a different plane of influence. Heracles' mythic battles mirror this dynamic. They show that true heroism involves navigating complex hierarchies of power, thinking strategically, and maintaining courage when facing forces that seem insurmountable. It's an enduring lesson that resonates even outside the realm of mythology. Strength is important, but wisdom, strategy, and moral clarity are equally vital when confronting monumental challenges. By exploring these episodes, we gain a deeper appreciation for Heracles' versatility. He wasn't limited to local skirmishes or personal redemption arcs. He ventured across the known world, engaged with diverse cultures, and even faced beings of godlike power. Each adventure expanded the scope of his legend, showcasing a hero capable of operating on both human and divine planes. This combination of exploration, combat, and strategic insight is what elevates Heracles from a mere mythic strongman to a timeless symbol of courage, ingenuity, and adaptability. As we reflect on these chapters, it becomes clear that Heracles' heroism is multifaceted. He is not merely a figure of brute strength or a demigod caught in the whims of the gods. He is an explorer, a tactician, and a participant in events that shape worlds, both mortal and divine. This perspective enriches our understanding of his character, setting the stage for the next set of remarkable tales, where his feats grow even more daring, dangerous, and awe-inspiring. 4. Heracles' encounters with monsters were more than just fights. Many people know Heracles as the guy who wrestled lions and strangled serpents, but these encounters were more than mere demonstrations of brute strength. They were complex challenges requiring ingenuity, patience, and sometimes diplomacy. Take the example of the Ceryneian Hind, a sacred deer of Artemis, which he had to capture alive without harming it. Unlike previous labors that allowed for direct confrontation, this task required Heracles to exercise restraint, strategic thinking, and respect for divine law. Imagine this in a modern context. It is as if a superhero were tasked with capturing a dangerous criminal without causing harm to civilians, navigating legal and ethical constraints while still achieving the objective. Heracles had to chase the hind across vast terrains for an entire year, demonstrating stamina, patience, and the ability to adapt his approach. This labor is particularly fascinating because it illustrates that heroism isn't just about defeating adversaries, it's also about understanding rules, respecting limits, and exercising intelligence under pressure. Another extraordinary monster he confronted was the Stymphalian birds, man-eating creatures with metallic feathers. Heracles didn't just attack blindly. He used bronze rattles given to him by Athena to frighten them into flight and then shot them down with his bow. This combination of divine assistance, clever strategy, and precise execution showcases that his triumphs weren't merely the result of physical might. They required critical thinking, problem-solving, and timing. These stories highlight that Heracles' encounters with monsters were often as much mental and strategic battles as they were physical confrontations, adding layers of depth to his myth. 3. Heracles played a role in the Trojan War legends. While most people associate Heracles with his 12 labors and adventures across the Mediterranean, he also has a fascinating connection to the events leading up to the Trojan War. According to some versions of Greek myth, Heracles' earlier exploits set the stage for conflicts that would later embroil generations of heroes, including the legendary warriors of Troy. One particularly intriguing tale involves the theft of the cattle of Geryon and the related encounters with kings and warriors in distant lands. The diplomatic maneuvers, strategic alliances, and conflicts Heracles engaged in indirectly influenced the political landscape of the ancient world. In some accounts, the descendants of figures he encountered or opposed became key players in the Trojan saga. Think of it as a ripple effect in modern storytelling. The actions of a single hero create consequences that unfold across generations, affecting the fates of nations and shaping epic conflicts. Moreover, Heracles' reputation and legendary status influenced the culture of heroism itself. The Greek heroes who fought in Troy, Achilles, Odysseus, Hector, were all aware of the feats of Heracles, which shaped their understanding of courage, strength, and honor. It's like how contemporary superheroes or iconic historical figures inspire successive generations of leaders, athletes, or warriors. Heracles' influence extended far beyond his immediate actions. He became a benchmark of excellence and heroism, setting standards that others aspired to match. These connections between Heracles and later legends demonstrate that his story isn't confined to isolated events or mythical creatures. He exists within a broader narrative web, affecting history, culture, and the ideals of heroism itself. His adventures are interwoven with the tapestry of Greek mythology, linking him to legendary wars, heroic lineages, and moral lessons that resonate even in modern storytelling. In summary, Heracles' encounters with monsters reveal a hero who combined strength with intelligence, patience, and ethical consideration. Meanwhile, his indirect role in the Trojan legends illustrates his far-reaching impact, shaping the culture of heroism and inspiring generations of warriors. These tales remind us that true heroism is multidimensional, involving physical prowess, mental agility, and a lasting influence that extends far beyond immediate deeds. With these narratives, Heracles emerges not just as a mythic strongman, but as a figure whose actions, choices, and strategies resonate across space and time, influencing events, inspiring heroes, and leaving an indelible mark on the collective imagination of the ancient world and beyond. His story teaches us that heroism is as much about cleverness, morality, and legacy as it is about sheer power, preparing us for the final chapters of his life where his most astonishing feats and enduring lessons come to light. Year 2. Heracles' Immortality. From Mortal to God. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Heracles. Story is his transformation from a mortal hero into a divine being. Unlike many other Greek heroes who fade into legend after death, Heracles' story culminates in a literal ascent to Olympus. After enduring countless trials, facing mortal dangers, and even suffering tragic betrayals, Heracles' mortal life ultimately ended in flames, but his legacy did not. Through a combination of divine intervention and his extraordinary deeds, he was granted immortality, becoming a god among gods. This transformation is remarkable not just for its fantastical elements, but for what it symbolizes: the human aspiration for transcendence through courage, resilience, and moral fortitude. Heracles' journey from a mortal burdened by tragedy to a revered deity illustrates that heroism is not merely about feats accomplished in life, but also about leaving a lasting mark that transcends mortality. Imagine a modern parallel: an individual who overcomes unimaginable personal trials, achieves extraordinary success, and becomes an enduring symbol of inspiration for generations. Heracles embodies this idea on a mythic scale. Moreover, Heracles' immortality represents reconciliation with the divine forces that once tormented him. Hera, who spent much of his life trying to undermine him, eventually accepted him into the realm of the gods. It's a powerful narrative of redemption, forgiveness, and ultimate recognition. Even in mythology, this arc reminds us that persistence, courage, and integrity can triumph over adversity, earning acknowledgement from those who once opposed us. 1. Heracles' legacy influences culture. Even today. Finally, Heracles' impact goes far beyond ancient Greece. His image, exploits, and character traits have permeated literature, art, theater, and popular culture for thousands of years. From Roman adaptations that celebrated Hercules to Renaissance paintings depicting his epic labors, Heracles became a symbol of human strength, endurance, and ingenuity. His story influenced everything from comic books to blockbuster films, creating an archetype of the hero who is both physically powerful and morally complex. In modern American culture, think of superheroes like Superman or the Avengers. They owe a great deal to the template established by Heracles. Like Heracles, these heroes face overwhelming odds, moral dilemmas, and complex relationships. They combine extraordinary abilities with cleverness, strategy, and human emotion. The enduring appeal of such characters demonstrates the timelessness of Heracles' story. He is a blueprint for heroism that balances power, intelligence, and moral depth. Even today, educators, storytellers, and artists reference Heracles' myth to convey lessons about resilience, creativity, and ethical decision-making. His labors, adventures, and ultimate divinity provide rich material for exploring human potential, the consequences of choices, and the rewards of perseverance. Heracles' legacy reminds us that heroism is multidimensional, encompassing strength, intellect, morality, and the ability to inspire others long after one's life has ended. Conclusion and call to action. Heracles' story is more than ancient myth. It is a tapestry of human struggle, ingenuity, and triumph. From his divine birth and early labors to his friendships, adventures, battles with monsters and gods, and ultimate ascension to immortality, Heracles exemplifies the complexity of true heroism. He teaches us that courage is not just about physical might, but also about resilience, intelligence, moral clarity, and leaving a lasting impact. If you found this journey through the life of Heracles fascinating, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video with friends who love mythology, epic adventures, and legendary heroes. Subscribe to the channel to make sure you never miss another deep dive into the stories that shaped human imagination. And for those who want even more exclusive content, join as a member to unlock behind-the-scenes insights, expanded myths, and special stories you won't find anywhere else. Finally, if you'd like to support the channel directly, use the Super Thanks feature below the video. Your contribution helps us continue exploring these timeless legends. Get ready, because the myths we uncover next will take you even further into the extraordinary world of heroes, gods, and the lessons they leave for us all.